We are only 1 week down into the month of November, and we just had probably the biggest shakeup in the conference race so far. What's up, guys? My name is Jake, and this is Somewhere in the Middle, the Big 12 show here, Play the Fight Song. We appreciate you guys tuning in this week. We're back with another action-packed episode. We'll keep this one a little shorter. I'm going to give you guys my college football playoff reactions for the Big 12 teams, what to expect going forward. As always, we'll highlight the week before. It was a crazy week 10. And then, as always, we get to the end. We will do our prediction segment and preview the week 11 games. Our predictions are partnered by our friends at shopnorivals.com. No Rivals is the best collegiate hats in all of college sports. If you're a Big 12 fan, you got to go check these guys out. They have a ton of sweet options. If you guys let us know in the comments below, score prediction, you think Colorado beats Texas Tech 27-31. If you get that 2 for 2, and of course, you subscribe to us here, Play the Fight Song, we will get you guys a hat at shopnorivals.com. Go check those guys out. Browse around. Use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on all of your orders there. We appreciate them each and every single week here at Play the Fight Song. All right, we got to get into it. As always, we give you guys our players of the week each and every single week. Week 10, I got to go two guys, and they both got to be running backs. The first one, we are going RJ Harvey as UCF absolutely splatters Arizona at home. Just another great prediction on my end. I had Arizona winning outright with the upset, and that's the beauty of this conference. Each and every single week, it just continues to surprise you and just lets you know that you don't actually have a read on these teams when you think you do. But no, offense looked great. The quarterback for UCF, the new kid, looked nice. But honestly, it's nice to see RJ just continue to run the ball well. 150 yards. I believe he had 3 scores. And he's just, when the season's kind of been in the dumps, you change play callers, you get rid of Ted Roof, your defensive coordinator. This kid continues to play hard as the captain of this team, and they got a really good win, and they're still playing good football right now, and they've been playing better football. So they're still fighting for something in an era where you see a lot of kids opt out. It was really awesome to see RJ have a huge game on Saturday because he honestly deserved it. The second one, we got to highlight Bo. In a rain delay, this guy doesn't care. He comes out of halftime and just continues to run all over the field in Stillwater. Big win for Arizona State. They are bowl eligible. Really, really awesome job for Kenny Dillingham in his second year at Arizona State. Scatterbo had, I believe, 120 receiving yards, and he had I think he was close to over 190 rushing yards. I don't have the stats on me there, but his all-purpose yards was absolutely insane. And one could argue, it's the Oklahoma State defense. They give up yards to everybody, but not in bunches like this. And I didn't really see the receiving option out of Bo like that. And he really looked awesome. He's going down this week. He won't be playing this week, but still got to highlight him for an absolute great performance in what felt like a good win and a must win for Arizona State as that team continues to fly under the radar in this conference. Defensively, listen, if you listen to the show in prior weeks, you know that I bring my Iowa State perspective, but I put my bias aside for this show because I love to do this for you guys. Jacob Rodriguez was a stud on Saturday. We can get to the Iowa State and all those thoughts, but Texas Tech defense probably had its best performance of the year so far. And Rodriguez had, I believe, 2 sacks and he was the one with the pressure on Rocco, which caused the interception that he threw. He was all over the field. We highlighted him last week going into this one. And in a game where the defense really stood up for Texas Tech in a much needed win, they get it done on the road. So shout out to Jacob, shout out to Rodriguez, and shout out to that Texas Tech defense for getting it done and getting a massive road win against Iowa State. All right, brief week 10 notes. We'll just stay on topic with the Iowa State loss. Iowa State and Kansas State both go down in the race for the Big 12 title in Dallas in a month. Just gets crazier than ever. We're going to find out a lot about these teams. Colorado has a massive one this weekend at Texas Tech. BYU in the Holy War goes on the road at Utah. We'll cover that in our prediction segment, but it just feels like each and every single week when you get these point spreads that are so low, you're just going to continue to have these upsets. But that was honestly the most surprising part out of last weekend and why it was probably the most shocking weekend of the Big 12 so far. You had Iowa State at home as a 14.5-point favorite. Couldn't get it done. You have Kansas on the road I believe they were a 12.5-point favorite at Houston. If you're picking and choosing, Kansas State's loss feels worse. And that's not because I'm an Iowa State fan. It's just because that was one where I thought Kansas State really had a matchup advantage against Houston. We knew that Houston could not throw the ball. Zeon Chriss, shout out to him, ran the ball exceptionally well. But I thought that was a spot where Kansas State could slow him down and really just limit that offense. And that really wasn't the case. So I thought that was a good win for Houston. Coach Fritz continues to have that group buttoned up. But Kansas State now has 2 losses in the Big 12. Iowa State suffers its first. They're not off the hook. They have a huge game this weekend in Kansas City. But now Kansas State's kind of in the back seat again because they watch all afternoon. Iowa State plays before. They see Iowa State falls. Now it's in their hands. If they run the table, they beat Iowa State the last game of the year and they can get in, they fall at Houston. So Kansas State's destiny was literally in their hands for about 2 hours. and now that loss really hurts. Iowa State still controls its own destiny. That's why I just feel like Kansas State's was worse in a week where BYU and Colorado both have the week off, of course. And so you got to feel pretty good about watching those two kind of suffer those losses if you're a part of those fan bases. Texas Tech kind of feels like it's under the radar. Now, they got to win this weekend. It's going to be a tough task for them. But I'm not sure if that team's playing its best football right now. Thought Iowa State kind of gave it away with some turnovers in some spots. The defense still hasn't really impressed me. It was more so the fact Iowa State's offense keeps getting in its own way more than I thought the Texas Tech defense has really been showing out, at least for last week. Arizona State, we'll see what they can do. Take it 1 week at a time, right? Like you got UCF at home. You're playing without your best player. We'll see. But this is maybe, I don't know how long Scatterbo is going to be out, but just win 1 week at a time because we could be back here next week talking standings and Iowa State could have 2 losses after losing to Kansas State. Maybe BYU suffers its first loss. Colorado, if they lose, that Colorado's only got 1 loss in the league. They lose this weekend to Texas Tech. Now you're at 2 losses with Arizona State, with Texas Tech, assuming everybody gets the job done and wins those games. So the race is hotter than ever. That's my takeaway. We could sit here, man, and talk about Oklahoma State and their struggles. And it's just like, at this point, it's not even worth it. If I want to talk about somebody, I want to highlight Houston, really good win. Coach Aranda, Baylor, they get their 3rd straight win. It seems like they're kind of out of conference contention at this point, but playing good football, and they could be staring at a 7 or 8 win season, which would be absolutely massive if you're Baylor right now. And honestly, that's surprising to me. And I thought that wasn't possible a couple of weeks ago. So outside of the big upsets, that's really the highlight from week 10. On top of that, the college football playoff rankings came out. We did a full show on it. Go to our lives tab. We did a live show on it on Tuesday. That was a lot of fun. Go check out our full thoughts and breakdowns, our initial reactions. We did it right after they got released. But for your Big 12 teams, BYU at number 9, and then Iowa State at 17, Kansas State at 19, and Colorado at 20. Let's start with BYU, right? Because they're kind of, I think a lot of America who's not into the big name brands, they really want to go to bat for BYU and Indiana, and rightfully so. I said it on the live show last week. I think it's a slap in the face, not only to BYU, but to SMU at 13, because basically you're leaving SMU out of the top 12 when their only loss is to a top 12 team, Whereas you have Tennessee at 7, who lost to Arkansas. Arkansas lost to Oklahoma State. Vice versa. You can turn it around. You go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. It's resume based. You want to compare your wins and not your losses. I kind of understand that, but at the same time, SMU's resume right now it's good enough, and it just kind of slaps BYU in the face as well and says, yeah, well, BYU went into your house and beat you. That's a bad loss when there are just other teams in that top 12 that have worse losses. Also, let's go to the wins for BYU. Kansas State at home, really good win. At SMU's another really good win. They have these good ones. At Baylor, earlier in the year, it didn't seem like a good of a win, but Baylor's building up their resume too. And BYU slapped them around. I know they came back in that game, but what was it? 28-0. So BYU has really good wins on this resume. And for some reason, I don't know if they're thinking like, well, you should have lost to Oklahoma State at home. Okay. Like Kansas State should have lost to Kansas at home the other weekend. And I think if you erase the records, I think Kansas and Oklahoma State are just as talented as a lot of your middle of the pack ACC teams, Big Ten teams, hell, even some of your SEC teams. I'll say it again. Arkansas lost to Oklahoma State. So it's not like the Arkansas, the Vanderbilts, your Kentuckys are just superior to your Kansas, your Oklahoma State. But that's beside the point. I feel like I'm getting off topic there. BYU just needs to keep winning. I think the rest will handle itself. Tennessee's got Georgia in a week or two. Who else? Indiana's got Ohio State. We'll see, right? Alabama at 11. They got LSU this weekend. But honestly, if LSU wins, they'll probably just slot LSU ahead of BYU, right? Like that's how that will probably work. But just keep winning. You're a 4-point favorite on the road at your rival this weekend. So you just got to take it 1 week at a time. For the Iowa State, Kansas State, Colorado rankings, it kind of just goes into my mini rant I just had about just how 2-loss LSU or 2-loss Ole Miss can be jumped ahead of any of those teams. Ole Miss has a loss on the road at LSU. They have a win, and then they have another loss at home against a 3-win Kentucky team. Just as an Iowa State fan, that's disappointing. You have Georgia this weekend if you're Ole Miss. They'll show it there, but I'm trying to think like Ole Miss's good wins are what exactly? They just trounced Arkansas. I don't really know what Ole Miss's best wins are. You have an LSU team that lost to USC on a neutral site. I know it was the beginning of the year, but they lost to USC. At this point, you compare resumes like K-State lost to BYU. That's a better team than USC. That is frustrating. For those teams at this point, Kansas State and Colorado sitting at 2 with 2 losses. It feels like it's going to be tougher for them to jump into the top 15 with just 2 losses. They keep winning out. We'll have to wait and see. Iowa State, I think, has a better chance just because of the 1 loss and being at home against Texas Tech. We'll kind of have to wait and see there. But if Iowa State gets a couple of wins here, they win against Kansas on the road. They beat Cincinnati at home. A couple weeks goes by, the rest of the games play out. Iowa State feels like your best shot at getting another team back into 13 or 14 right now. If I probably would say it in a couple of weeks, I just feel like Kansas State and Colorado are kind of stuck. Like I don't see either of them jumping higher than 16 at this point. That's just kind of the way I see it. And it's disappointing. This begs the question for the last question before we move on to previews and predictions. Does the Big 12 get 2 teams in? Feel like last week kind of really shot yourselves in the foot. Literally the only scenario I think would be you need Iowa State, Kansas State, or Colorado to run the table and beat BYU in the title game. And then you need BYU to run the table and obviously then lose to any of those three teams. That is your only scenario. And I am here to tell you right now that will absolutely not happen. Two things. That will not happen because, number one, I don't think BYU is going to run the table because it is the Big 12 and the point spreads are so close and the talent gap is just it's right here and there's really no separator. But number two, if they do run the table, I'm taking BYU in the title game, no matter who they play. Now you'd say the pressure's on BYU to win that game, whereas the other teams, like, if we win, we're in. The pressure kind of feels at stakes pretty high for both teams. But if BYU's battle tested enough to win out the rest of the way, I'll take them in the title game, and that includes Iowa State because I think that defense is playing good and they're running the football better. The offense looks better for me to impress me enough to think that BYU is legit. So we'll see if they can keep that up. All right. That is my initial thoughts on the Big 12 rankings and the college football playoff rankings in particular. We'll see. We'll see if we break those down next week, depending on, again, how things shake up nationally, how things shake up within the conference. If they don't move, we'll probably move on to something else and touch on it in a couple of weeks. But let's take a quick break. As always, getting into the previews, week 11 previews brought to you by our partners at shopnorivals.com. Give us a score prediction below. Give us a score prediction. Who's going to win in any of the Big 12 games this weekend? And while you're here, we appreciate you guys tuning in so far. Remember to subscribe to our channel, like the video, comment what team you guys are representing in the Big 12, and we appreciate you guys being here. Last week, prediction-wise, it just feels like we've been one game off of 500 each week since we went 5-0 a couple of weeks ago, but ever since then it was like 3-4, 2-3. Last week we went 2-3, and our losses are just completely whiffing on them. But we get back up to the plate and we keep swinging every time. We were off. We had Arizona, Iowa State, and Kansas State as our losses last week. Not even close. Not even close. We were on Baylor. We were on Arizona State. Those were two tougher games that I was on the right side of. So interesting for that aspect. All right. Let's go to the first one. Renewing a little bit of a rivalry. We got 4-4 West Virginia traveling on the road to 5-3 Cincinnati. Both teams, I believe, coming off of the bye. I know West Virginia is. Cincinnati could be coming off a bye after that Colorado loss. Interesting spot here. Cincinnati's playing for bowl eligibility, where this feels like Cincinnati wants to be bowl eligible more than West Virginia does, because I think you have a fan base right now in West Virginia that, I'm not saying they want to lose football games. No fan base ever wants to root for their football team to lose. But if you want Neil Brown gone, it's because of this game right here. Like games like this, because you look at West Virginia's losses this year, all against pretty good ranked teams. And then on the other side, like, you have a Cincinnati team who really, really needs this one, really wants this one. I think this would be huge for Satterfield's second year in the Big 12. And I think he's got that program moving in the right direction. I'll take Cincinnati at home because a couple of things. I think this one's going to be really close. I think they match up pretty well, but I think Cincinnati just has a little bit better of a defense. West Virginia's defense has been okay in some spots, but you just fired your defensive coordinator. You looked impressive versus Arizona, which Arizona's offense makes any defense look impressive at this point. But outside of that, I just don't like what I see from West Virginia defensively. I think that Cincinnati's offense has plenty of weapons. I think they can do a little bit of both, running and throwing the football. And this line continues to go up. This one was at 3.5. I have it at 5. So the money is going in on Cincinnati. But we're going to look back on Sunday and we're like, I mean, of course, West Virginia won. Neil Brown always wins these games. It's not a ranked opponent, right? So we'll see there, but I'll take Cincinnati. Colorado, one of the bigger games of the weekend. Colorado on the road at Texas Tech. Colorado already bowl eligible for the first time since 2017, I believe. So they're already surpassing their expectations at this point. I know they don't want to admit it, but this is a huge win already for Coach Prime and that group this year. You are traveling to Lubbock, where Texas Tech is coming off of will it be a hangover spot for them? We'll have to wait and see. Colorado coming off of the bye. I really like Colorado in the spot. We broke it down. Go back to our channel, play the fight song. I broke down all of my thoughts on this game, so I'm not going to get into it a ton, but I just think Colorado's passing attack is just going to have a field day in the dry Texas desert against this Texas Tech defense. I don't see them stopping it. I thought the weather slowed down Iowa State more than anything last week, so I like Colorado in this spot. UCF at Arizona State. Arizona State is a 3-point favorite. You guys getting a trend here? I mean, it's all just close. It has been said that Bo Scatabo's out. Sam Levitt's back. He played last week. He looks good. He looks like he's healthy. And while I think Bo is your best player, your quarterback is your most important guy. And to get him back, I think can really lighten up the load on whoever steps in at running back. Levitt does a nice job of moving the ball with his legs too. So it's not like this Arizona State team won't be able to run the football. It's not going to be as efficient. The explosive plays aren't going to be as great. I would really love to see Bo Scatabo play RJ Harvey, but nonetheless, we won't get it. Arizona State's 4-0 at home this year. I really like this spot for them. On the other side, UCF kind of figuring some things out. They like Dylan Rizek. Had a nice game last week. I was impressed with what I saw. Not really sure where he's been all year, but you had to go to the bottom of the pine to go find him. They're doing this little thing with Ja'Cory Brown and Rizek, just kind of these couple of different packages, and they have Brown running the football in some different spots. And I guess it's kind of working. You move over to Tim Harris to call plays if you're UCF, and at least against Arizona, it worked. Now, we'll wait and see, right? I mean, this is a trend. We've seen teams play Arizona, and they looked impressive, and then the next week, it's not the same. Arizona had to go to Orlando. Now Orlando has to go to Tempe. Just traveling that long of a distance, you just saw what it did to your rival. I think, Arizona State in this one feels like a good spot. Oklahoma State at 5-4 TCU. This is the biggest spread of the weekend. TCU is a 10.5-point favorite. Oklahoma State will be going to their third string quarterback. I mean, what is there more to say about Oklahoma State? Although this does feel like a spot where Oklahoma State can score a ton of points. I mean, I said that for Baylor last week. TCU's defense is still bad. And maybe the shakeup at quarterback is just exactly what they need at this point if you're Oklahoma State. But you have nothing to lose in this one. I know I've seen on Twitter, Pokes fans travel down to Fort Worth really well. I'm not going to take Oklahoma State outright, but I like Oklahoma State spread in this if you were betting it. I think TCU gets it done, but I really like 10.5 with Oklahoma State. Iowa State at Kansas. This one's in Arrowhead Stadium. Iowa State is a 3-point favorite. Your top three teams in the Big 12 that are playing this weekend are all 4 points or less. Again, we covered this a ton back in our channel. I feel eerie about this spot for Iowa State. Just don't love the spot. The offense has been sputtering the last couple of weeks, but this is a Kansas team that they will make mistakes. They will make mistakes, but can you capitalize on them? Texas Tech made plenty of them last week, and you didn't capitalize on them. You had turnovers on your end. You didn't convert in the red zone and things like that. And that's a recipe for disaster, especially traveling on the road. It's supposed to be raining in Kansas City this weekend. So BYU, 4-point favorite on the road at Utah. The first holy war since 2021, the first holy war in the Big 12 Conference. I'm excited for it. Just wish Utah would put a better offense on the field, better product to be more enjoyable. But nonetheless, I think this one will be really, really good. Again, we break this one down in our big game breakdowns this week on our live episode. So again, I won't diving into it too much. We really went all in on our Big 12 content this week. So I'll wrap this up by saying I don't know how Utah is going to score any points. That being said, absolutely nothing to lose. Who's going to be playing quarterback, Rose or Wilson? No idea. It feels like BYU should win this one by 40. And we are going to take Utah because that's what we do on this show. It's the Big 12, right? The spread's close. It's a weird spot. And a lot of times what Vegas has been telling you this year usually has actually gone the opposite way. Like the obvious picks have been, at least to my eye, I feel like they've been hitting pretty straightforward. But Kansas State got bit last week. Iowa State got bit last week. Colorado or BYU will get bit this weekend. I don't know which one. I think Colorado has a better chance to get a win this weekend. And this is a huge rivalry game in the state of Utah. So give me the Utes. And like I said on the live show, if you're a BYU fan, you're happy I picked against you because I've been picking wrong on you all season long. So let's recap it before we get out of here. We are on Cincinnati, Iowa State, Colorado, Arizona State, TCU, but Oklahoma State to cover. And we are on Utah. So that's it for this week. Week 11. We have 6 games on the slate. Some more Big 12 games. More teams are back in action. Guys, we're going to be back again next week. Tune in because I guarantee it doesn't go chalk this week, and we're going to have more chaos in the conference, and that's why we love to cover it. Again, tune into all of our stuff. Go back to our channel. Subscribe to the channel. Like the video. Comment a score prediction below. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Don't know what time. Don't know when. We got a lot of stuff to cover, but tune into our live Wednesday episodes at Play the Fight Song, where we cover the entire landscape of college football. Thanks for tuning in again this week, guys. Again, my name is Jake. Follow me on my Twitter handle below, and we will see you guys for week 12. As always, how I send us out, we got to play it.